killed 2 hours after the sun rose, one of the scouts came galloping back. Abandoned camp ahead, my lord. Just on that hilltop there. Must have been at least 30 or 40 of them there last night, my lord. Ingtok put spurs to horse as if he had been told the dark friends were still there. And Rand had to keep pace or be trampled by the Shanarans who galloped up the hill behind him. There was not much to see. The cold ashes of campfires, well hidden in the trees, with what looked like the remnants of a meal tossed in them. A refuse heap too near the fires and already buzzing with flies. Ingtar kept the others back and dismounted to walk through the campsite with Uno, examining the ground. Huron rode the circumference of the site, sniffing. Rand sat his stallion with the other men. He had no desire for any closer look at a place where Trollocs and dark friends had camped. And a fade. Something worse. Matt scrambled up the hill afoot and stalked into the campsite. Is this what a dark friend camp looks like? Smells a bit, but I can't say it looks any different from anybody else's. He kicked at one of the ash heaps, knocking out a piece of burned bone, and stooped to pick it up. What do dark friends eat? Doesn't look like a sheep, though, or a cow. There was murder down here, Huron said mournfully. He scrubbed at his nose with a kerchief. Worse than murder. There were Trollocs here, Ingtar said, looking straight at Matt. I suppose they got hungry, and the dark friends were handy. Matt dropped the blackened bone. He looked as if he were going to be sick. They're not going south any longer, my lord, Huron said. That took everybody's attention. He pointed back to the northeast. Maybe they've decided to break for the Blight after all. Go around us. Maybe they were just trying to put us off by coming south. He did not sound as if he believed it. He sounded puzzled. Whatever they were trying, Ingtar snarled, I'll have them now. Mount. Little more than an hour later, though, Huron drew rein. They changed again, my lord. South again. And they killed someone else here. There were no ashes there, in the gap between two hills, but a few minutes' search found the body. A man curled up and stuffed under some bushes. The back of his head was smashed in, and his eyes still bulged with the force of the blow. No one recognized him, though he was wearing Shanaran clothes. We'll waste no time burying dark friends, Ingtar growled. We ride south. He suited his own words almost before they were out of his mouth. The day was the same as the day before had been, though. Uno studied tracks and droppings and said they had gained a little ground on their quarry. Twilight came with no sight of Trollocs or dark friends, and the next morning...
Hey, Mac Attack, how you doing?
Camp, and another
I'll be smoking here in a little bit. I'm just
and another change of direction,
throwing a grub real quick.
Northwest. Less than 2 hours on that track found another body, a man with his skull split open by an axe, and another change of direction, south again. Again gaining ground by Uno's reading of the tracks. Again seeing nothing but distant farms until nightfall. And the next day was the same. Changes in direction, murders and all. And the next. Every day brought them a little closer behind their prey, but Ingtar fumed. He suggested cutting straight across when the trail changed direction of a morning. Surely they would come on the trail heading south again and gain more time. And before anyone could speak, he said it was a bad idea, in case this once the men they hunted did not turn south. He urged everyone to greater speed, to start earlier and ride till full dark. He reminded them of the charge the Amerlin seat had given them, to recover the Horn of Valir and let nothing bar their way. He spoke of the glory they would have, their names remembered in story and history. In Gleeman's tales and bards' songs, the men who found the horn. He talked as if he could not stop, and he stared down the trail they followed as if his hope of the light lay at the end of it. Even Uno began to look at him askance. And so they came to the river Erin. It could not properly be called a village at all to Rand's mind. He sat his horse among the trees, peering up at half a dozen small houses.
Hey, Charles, how you doing?
Eaves almost to the ground. On a hilltop overlooking the river beneath the morning sun. Few people passed this.
Oh no, the camera's on. I'm just
since they had broken camp.
I'm just throwing a grub real quick. I don't want everyone to have to watch me eat.
They had seen nothing of the sort, however.
Midnight snack to kill off dinner.
Was not much like the mighty Erin of story, here so far toward its source in the spine of the world. Perhaps 60 paces of swift water to the far bank, lined with trees, and a barge-like ferry on a thick rope spanning the distance. The ferry sat snugged against the other side. For once, the trail had led straight to human habitation, straight to the houses on the hill. No one moved on the single dirt street around which the dwellings clustered. Ambush, my lord, Uno said softly. Ingtar gave the necessary orders, and the Shinarans unlimbered their lances, sweeping around to encircle the houses. At a hand signal from Ingtar, they galloped between the houses from 4 directions, thundering in with eyes searching, lances ready, dust rising under their hooves. Nothing moved but them. They drew rein. The dust began to settle. Rand returned to his quiver the arrow he had knocked, and slung his bow on his back again. Matt and Perrin did the same. Loyal and Huron had just waited there, where Ingtar had left them, watching uneasily. Ingtar waved, and Rand and the others rode up to join the Shinarans. I don't like the smell of this place, Perrin muttered as they came among the houses. Huron gave him a look, and he stared back until Huron dropped his eyes. It smells wrong. Bloody dark friends and Trollocs went straight through, my lord, Uno said, pointing to a few tracks not chopped to pieces by the Shinarans. Straight through to the goat-kissing ferry, which they bloody left on the other side. Blood and bloody ashes. You're flaming lucky they didn't cut it adrift. Where are the people? Boyle asked. Doors stood open, curtains flapped at open windows, but no one had come out for all the thunder of hooves. Search the houses, Ingtar commanded. Men dismounted and ran to comply, but they came back shaking their heads. They're just gone, my lord, Uno said. Just bloody gone, burn me. Like they'd picked up and decided to flaming walk away in the middle of the bloody day. He stopped suddenly, pointing urgently to a house behind Ingtar. There's a woman at that window. Oh, I bloody missed her. He was running for the house before anyone else could move. Don't frighten her, Ingtar shouted. Uno, we need information. The light blind you, Uno. Don't frighten her. The one-eyed man disappeared through the open door. Ingtar raised his voice again. We will not harm you, good lady. We are Lord Agomar's oathman from Valdara. Do not be afraid. We will not harm you. A window at the top of the house flew up, and Uno stuck his head out, staring around wildly. With an oath, he pulled back. Thumps and clatters marked his passage back, as if he were kicking things in frustration. Finally, he appeared from the doorway. Gone, my lord. But she was there. A woman in a white dress at the window. I saw her. I even thought I saw her inside for a moment. But then she was gone, and... He took a breath. The house is empty, my lord. It was a measure of his agitation that he did not curse. Curtains, Matt muttered. He's jumping at bloody curtains. Uno gave him a sharp look and returned to his horse. Where did they go? Rand asked Loyal. Do you think they ran off when the Dark Friends came? Trollocs and the Myrtle. And Huron's something worse. Smart people if they ran as hard as they could. I fear the Dark Friends took them, Rand, Loyal said slowly. He grimaced, almost a snarl with his broad nose like a snout. Or the Trollocs. Rand swallowed and wished he had not asked. It was never pleasant to think on how Trollocs fed. Whatever was done here, Ingtar said, our Dark Friends did it. Huron, was there violence here? Killing? Huron! The sniffer gave a start in his saddle and looked around wildly. He'd been staring across the river. Violence, my lord. Yes. Killing? No. Or, not exactly. He glanced sideways at Perrin. I've never smelled anything exactly like it before, my lord. But there was hurting done. Is there any doubt they crossed over? Have they doubled back again? They crossed, my lord. Huron looked uneasily at the far bank. They crossed. What they did on the other side, though, he shrugged. Ingtar nodded.
Give me 1 second, the camera will be back on.
I want that ferry back on this side. I want the other side scouted before we cross. Just because there was no ambush here doesn't mean there will not be one when we are split by the river. That ferry does not look big enough to carry us all in one trip. See to it. Uno bowed, and in moments, Ragan and Massima were helping each other out of their armor. Stripped down to breech clouts, with a dagger stuck behind in the small of the back, They trotted to the river on horsemen's bowed legs, waded in, beginning to work their way hand over hand along the thick rope along which the ferry ran. The cable sagged enough in the middle to put them in the river to their waists, and the current was strong, pulling them downstream. Yet in less time than Rand expected, they were hauling themselves over the slatted sides of the ferry. Drawing their daggers, they disappeared into the trees. After what seemed like forever, the two men reappeared and began pulling the ferry slowly across. The barge butted against the bank below the village, and Masima tied it off while Ragan trotted up to where Ingtar waited. His face was pale, the arrow scar on his cheek sharp. He sounded shaken. The far bank. There is no ambush on the far bank, my lord. But he bowed deeply, still wet and shivering from his excursion. My lord, you must see for yourself. The big stone oak, 50 paces south from the landing. I cannot say the words. You must see it yourself. Ingtar frowned, looking from Ragan to the other bank. Finally, he said, You have done well, Ragan. Both of you have. His voice became more brisk. Find these men something to dry themselves on from the houses, Uno, and see if anybody left water on for tea. Put something hot into them if you can. Then bring the second file and the pack animals over. He turned to Rand. Well, are you ready to see the south bank of the Irinan?
Oh, yeah.
He did not wait for an answer, but rode back to the ferry with Huron and half the Lancers. Rand hesitated only a moment before following. Boyle went with him. To his surprise, Perrin rode down ahead of them, looking grim. Some of the Lancers, making gruff jokes, dismounted to haul on the rope and walk the ferry over. Matt waited until the last minute, when one of the Shinarans was untying the ferry before he kicked his horse and crowded aboard. I have to come sooner or later, don't I? He said, breathless, to no one in particular. I have to find it. Rand shook his head. With Matt looking as healthy as he ever had, he'd almost forgotten why he was along. Find the dagger. Let Ingtar have the horn. I just want the dagger on Matt. We will find it, Matt. Matt scowled at him with a sneering glance for his fine red coat, turned away. Rand sighed. It will all come out right, Rand. Boyle said.
I had there's leftover.
The current took
That's
the
what we
ferry
had
and
for
hauled out
dinner.
from the
It was
bank,
leftover.
tugging it against the cable with a sharp creak. The Lancers were odd ferrymen, walking the deck in helmets and armor, with swords on their
some
backs.
atomic
They took
wings.
the ferry out into the river well enough. This is how we left home, Perrin said suddenly. A Taran ferry. The ferryman's boots clunking on the deck and the water gurgling around the ferry. This is how we left. It will be worse this time. How can it be worse? Rand asked. Perrin did not answer. He searched the far bank, and his golden eyes almost seemed to shine, but not with eagerness. After a minute, Matt asked, How can it be worse? It will be. I can smell it, was all Perrin would say. Huron eyed him nervously, but then Huron seemed to be eyeing everything nervously since they had left Faldara. The ferry bumped against the south bank with a hollow thud of stout planks against hard
About to roll
plank.
one up.
Almost under overhanging trees, the Shinarans who had been hauling the rope mounted their horses, except for two Ingtar told to take the ferry back over for the others. The rest followed Ingtar up the bank. 50 paces to the big stone oak, Ingtar said, as they rode into the trees. He sounded too matter-of-fact. If Ragan could not speak of it. Some of the soldiers eased the swords on their backs, held their lances ready. At first, Rand thought the figures hanging by their arms from the thick gray limbs of the stone oak were scarecrows. Crimson scarecrows. Then he recognized the two faces. Changu, the other man who had been on guard with him. Nidao. Eyes staring, teeth bared in a rictus of pain. They had lived a long time after it began. Perrin made a sound in his throat, nearly a growl. As bad as ever I've seen, my lord, Huron said faintly. As bad as ever I've smelled, excepting the dungeon at Faldara that night. Frantically, Rand sought the boy. The flame seemed to get in the way, the queasy light fluttering in time with his convulsive swallows, but he pushed on until he had wrapped himself in emptiness. The queasiness pulsed in the void with him, though. Not outside for once, but inside. No wonder looking at this. The thought skittered across the void like a drop of water on a hot griddle. What happened to them? Skinned alive, he heard someone behind him say. The sounds of somebody else retching. He thought it was Matt, but it was all far away from him inside the void. But that nauseous flickering was in there too. He thought he might throw up himself. Cut them down, Ingtar said harshly. He hesitated a moment, then added, bury them. We cannot be sure they were Doc friends. They could have been taken prisoner. They could have been. Let them know the last embrace of the mother at least. Men rode forward gingerly with knives. Even for battle-hardened Shinarans, it was no easy task, cutting down the flayed corpses of men they knew. Are you all right, Rand? Ingtar said. I am not used to this either. I am all right, Ingtar. Rand let the void vanish. He felt less sick without it. His stomach still curdled, but it was better. Ingtar nodded and turned his horse so he could watch the men working. The burial was simple. 2 holes dug in the ground, and the bodies laid in as the rest of the Shinarans watched in silence. The gravediggers began shoveling earth into the graves with no more ado. Rand was shocked, but Boyle explained softly. Shinarans believe we all came from Earth, must return to Earth. They never use coffins or shrouds, and the bodies are never clothed. The Earth must hold the body. The last embrace of the mother, they call it. And there are never any words except, the light shine on you, and the Creator shelter you. The last embrace of the mother welcome you home. Boyle sighed and shook his huge head. I do not think anyone will save them this time. No matter what Ingtar says, Rand, there cannot be much doubt that Changgu and the Dao slew the guards at the dog gate and let the Dark Friends into the keep. It had to be they who were responsible for all of it. Then who shot the arrow at the Amerlin? Rand swallowed. Who shot at me? Boyle said nothing. Uno arrived with the rest of the men and the pack horses as the last earth was being shoveled onto the graves. Someone told him what they had found. The one-eyed man spat. Goat-kissing Trollocs do that along the Blight sometimes, when they want to shake your bloody nerve, or flaming warn you not to follow. Burn me if it works here, either. Before they rode away, Ingtar paused on his horse beside the unmarked graves, 2 mounds of bare earth that looked too small to hold men. After a moment, he said, the light shine on you, and the Creator shelter you. The last embrace of the mother welcome you home. When he raised his head, he looked at each man in turn. There was no expression on any face, least of all on Ingtar's. They saved Lord Agomar at Tarwin's Gap, he said. Several of the lancers nodded. Ingtar turned his horse. Which way, Huron? South, my lord. Take the trail. We hunt. The forest soon gave way to gently rolling flatland, sometimes crossed by a shallow stream that had dug itself a high-banked channel, with never more than a low rise or a squat hill that barely deserved the name. Perfect country for the horses. Ingtar took advantage of it, setting a steady, ground-covering pace. Occasionally Rand saw what might have been a farmhouse in the distance, and once what he thought was a village, with smoke rising from chimneys a few miles off, and something flashing white in the sun. But the land near them stayed empty of human life. Long swaths of grass, dotted with brush and occasional trees, with now and again a small thicket, never more than 100 paces across. Ingtar put out scouts, 2 men riding ahead, in sight only, when they topped an occasional rise. He had a silver whistle hanging around his neck to call them back if Huron said the trail had veered, but it did not. South. Always south. We will reach the field of Taladar in 3 or 4 days at this rate, Ingtar said as they rode. Artur Hawkwing's greatest single victory, when the half-men led the Trollocs out of the Blight against him. 6 days and nights it lasted. When it was done, the Trollocs fled back into the Blight and never dared challenge him again. He raised a monument there to his victory, a spire 100 spans high. He would not let them put his own name on it, but rather the names of every man who fell. and a golden sun at the top, symbol that there the light had triumphed over the shadow.
I would like to see that,
Loyal said.
I have never heard of this monument.
Ingtar was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. It is not there any longer, Builder. When Hawkwing died, the ones who fought over his empire could not bear to leave a monument to a victory of his, even if it did not mention his name. There's nothing left but the mound where it stood. In 3 or 4 days, we can see that at least. His tone did not allow much conversation afterwards. With the sun hanging golden overhead, they passed a structure, square and made of plastered brick, less than a mile from their path. It was not tall, no more than 2 stories, still standing anywhere he saw, but it covered a good height of ground. An air of long abandonment hung about it, roofs gone except for a few stretches of dark tile clinging to bits of rafter, most of the once white plaster fallen to bear the dark, weathered brick beneath, walls fallen to show courtyards and decaying chambers inside. Brush and even trees grew in the cracks of what had once been courtyards. A manor house, Ingtar explained. The little humor he had regained seemed to fade as he looked at the structure. When Harad Dakar still stood, I expect the manormen farmed this land for a league around. Orchards, maybe. The Hardani loved their orchards. Harad Dakar, Grant said. Ingtar snorted. Does no one learn history any longer? Harad Dakar, the capital city of Harden, which nation this once was that we are riding across. I've seen an old map, Rand replied in a tight voice. I know about the nations that aren't there anymore. Marado, and Goaban, and Karalane. But there wasn't any Harden on it.
There were once others that are gone now too, Loyal said. Marhaden, which is now Haden Merk, and Olmeth, Kintara. The War of the 100 Years cut Archer Hawkwing's empire into many nations, large and small. The small were gobbled up by the large, or else united, like Altara and Murandi. Forced together would be a better word than united, I suppose.
So what happened to them? Matt demanded. Rand had not noticed Perrin and Matt right up to join them. They had been at the rear, as far from Randolph Thor as they could get, the last he had seen.
They could not hold together,
the Ogier replied.
Crops failed or trade failed. People failed. Something failed in each case, and the nation dwindled. Once neighboring countries absorbed the land when the nations were gone. But they never lasted, those annexations. In time, the land truly was abandoned. Some villages hang on here and there, but mostly they have all gone to wilderness. It is nearly 300 years since Harad Dakar was finally abandoned. But even before that, it was a shell, with a king who could not control what happened inside the city walls. Harad Dakar itself is completely gone now, I understand. All the towns and cities of Harden are gone, the stone carted away by farmers and villagers for their own use. Most of the farms and villages made with it are gone too. So I read, and I've seen nothing to change it.
It was quite a quarry, Harad Dakar, for almost 100 years, Ingtar said bitterly. The people left finally, and then the city was hauled away stone by stone. All faded away. And what is not gone is fading. Everything everywhere fading. There is hardly a nation that truly controls the land it claims on a map. There is hardly a land that claims today on a map what it did even 100 years ago. When the War of the 100 Years ended, a man rode from one nation into another without end, from the Blight to the Sea of Storms. Now we ride through wilderness claimed by no nation for almost the whole of the land. We in the borderlands have our battle with the Blight to keep us strong and whole. Perhaps they did not have what they needed to keep them strong. You say they failed, Builder.
Gotta fix my seat real quick.
What nation standing whole today will fail tomorrow? We are being swept away, humankind. Swept away like flotsam on a flood. How long until there is nothing left but the borderlands? How long before we too go under, and there is nothing left but Trollocs and Murdrol, all the way to the Sea of Storms? There was a shocked silence. Not even Matt broke it. Ingtar rode lost in his own dark thoughts. After a time, the scouts came galloping back, straight in the saddles, lances erect against the sky. A village ahead, my lord. We were not seen, but it lies directly in our line of march. Ingtar shook himself out of his brown study, but did not speak until they had reached the crest of a low ridge looking down on the village. And then it was only to command a halt while he dug a looking glass from his saddlebags and raised it to peer at the village. Rand studied the village with interest. It was as big as Emmons Field, but that was not very big compared to some of the towns he had seen since living at Two Rivers, much less the cities. The houses were all low and plastered with white clay, and they appeared to have grass growing on sloping roofs. A dozen windmills scattered through the village turned lazily, their long cloth-covered arms flashing white in the sun. A low wall encircled the village, grassy dirt and chest high, and outside that was a wide ditch with sharpened stakes thick in the bottom. There was no gate in the one opening he could see in the wall, but he supposed it could be blocked easily enough with a cart or wagon. He could not see any people. Not even a dog in sight, Ingtar said, returning the looking glass to his saddlebags. Are you sure they did not see you? He asked the scouts. Not unless they have the Dark One's own luck, my lord, one of the men replied. We never crested the rise. We didn't see anyone moving then either, my lord. Ingtar nodded. The trail, Huron. Huron drew a deep breath. Toward the village, my lord. Straight to it, as near as I can tell from here. Watch sharp, Ingtar commanded, gathering his reins. And do not believe that they're friendly just because they smile, if there is anyone there. He led them down toward the village at a slow walk, reached up to loosen his sword in its scabbard. Rand heard the sounds of others behind him doing the same. After a moment, he eased his, too. Trying to stay alive was not the same as trying to be a hero, he decided. You think these people would help Dark Friends? Perrin asked Ingtar. The Shinaran was slow in answering. They have no great love for Shinarans, he said finally. They think we should protect them. Us, or the Kyrianin. Kyrian did claim this land, once the last king of Hardin died. All the way to the Eranin, they claimed it. They could not hold it, though. They gave up the claim nearly 100 years ago. The few people who still live here don't have to worry about Trollocs this far south. But there are plenty of human brigands. That's why they have the wall and the ditch. All their villages do. Their fields will be hidden in hollows around here. But no one will live outside the wall. They would swear fealty to any king who would give them his protection. But we have all we can do against the Trollocs. They do not love us for it, though. As they reached the opening in the low wall, he added again, Watch sharp! All the streets led toward a village square, but there was no one in the streets, no one peering from a window. Not even a dog moved, not so much as a chicken. Nothing living. Open doors swung, creaking in the wind, counterpoint to the rhythmic squeak of the windmills. The horses' hooves sounded loud on the packed dirt of the road. Like at the ferry, Huron muttered, but different. He rode hunched in his saddle, head down as if he were trying to hide behind his own shoulders. Violence done, but I don't know. It was bad here. It smells bad. Who knows? Ingtar said. Take one file and search the houses. If you find anyone, bring them to me in the square. Do not frighten them this time, though. I want answers, not people running for their lives. He led the other soldiers toward the center of the village as Uno got his 10 dismounted. Rand hesitated, looking around. The creaking doors, the squealing windmills, the horses' hooves all made too much noise, as if there were not another sound in the world. He scanned the houses. The curtains in an open window beat against the outside of the house. They all seemed lifeless. With a sigh, he got down and walked to the nearest house, then stopped, staring at the door. It's just a door. What are you afraid of? He wished he did not feel as if there was something waiting on the other side. Inside was a tidy room. It had been. The table was set for a meal, ladder-back chairs gathered around. Served. A few flies buzzed above bowls of turnips and peas. More crawled on a cold roast, sitting in its own congealed grease. There was a slice half carved from the roast, the fork still standing stuck in the meat, and the carving knife lying partway in a platter as if dropped. Rand stepped inside. A smiling, bald-headed man in rough clothes laid a slice of meat on a plate held by a woman with a worn face. She was smiling too, though. She added peas and turnips to the plate and passed it to one of the children lining the table. There were half a dozen children, boys and girls, from nearly grown down to barely tall enough to look over the table. The woman said something, and the girl taking the plate from her laughed. The man started to cut another slice. Suddenly, another girl screamed, pointing at the door to the street. The man dropped the carving knife and whirled. Then he screamed, face tight with horror, and snatched up a child. The woman grabbed another and motioned desperately to the others, her mouth working frantically, silently. They all scrabbled toward a door in the back of the room. That door burst open and... blink. Rand could not move. The flies buzzing over the table sounded louder. His breath made a cloud in front of his mouth. Blink. A smiling, bald-headed man in rough clothes laid a slice of meat on a plate held by a woman with a worn face. She was smiling too, though. She added peas and turnips to the plate and passed it to one of the children lining the table. There were half a dozen children, boys and girls, from nearly grown down to barely tall enough to look over the table. The woman said something, and the girl taking the plate from her laughed. The man started to cut another slice. Suddenly, another girl screamed, pointing at the door to the street. The man dropped the carving knife and whirled. Then he screamed too, face tight with horror, and snatched up a child. The woman grabbed another and motioned desperately to the others, her mouth working frantically, silently. They all scrabbled toward the door in the back of the room. That door burst open and... blink. Rand struggled, but his muscles seemed frozen. The room was cold. He wanted to shiver, but he could not move even that much. Flies crawled all over the table. He groped for the void. The sour light was there, but he did not care. He had to... blink. A smiling, bald-headed man in rough clothes laid a slice of meat on a plate held by a woman with a worn face. She was smiling too, though. She added peas and turnips to the plate and passed it to one of the children lining the table. There were half a dozen children, boys and girls, from nearly grown down to barely tall enough to look over the table. The woman said something, and the girl taking the plate from her laughed. The man started to cut another slice. Suddenly, another girl screamed, pointing at the door to the street. The man dropped the carving knife and whirled. Then he screamed too, face tight with horror, and snatched up a child. The woman grabbed another and motioned desperately to the others, her mouth working frantically, silently. They all scrabbled toward a door in the back of the room. That door burst open and... blink. The room was freezing. So cold. Flies blackened the table. The walls were a shifting mass of flies. The floor, the ceiling, all black with them. They crawled on Rand, covering him. Crawled over his face, his eyes, into his nose, his mouth. Vitally cold. The flies buzzed like thunder. Cold. They penetrated the void, mocking the emptiness, encasing him in ice. Desperately, he reached for the flickering light. His stomach twisted, but the light was warm. Warm. Hot. He was hot. Suddenly, he was tearing at something. He did not know what or how. Cobwebs made of steel. Moonbeams carved from stone. They crumbled at his touch, but he knew he had not touched anything. They shriveled and melted with the heat that surged through him. Heat like a forge fire, like the world burning. Heat like... It was gone. Panting, he looked around with wide eyes. A few flies lay on the half-carved roast in the platter. Dead flies. 6 flies. Only 6. There were more in the bowls, half a dozen tiny black specks among the cold vegetables. All dead. He staggered out into the street. Matt was just coming out of a house across the street, shaking his head. "Nobody there," he told Perrin, still on his horse. "It looks like they just got up in the middle of supper and walked away." A shout came from the square. "They found something," Perrin said, digging his heels into his horse's flanks. Matt scrambled into his saddle and galloped after it. Rand mounted slowly.
Hey, Babylon.
The stallion shied as it hit his knees. He
Just
glanced
hitting
at
one
the
of my
houses
dab
as he rode
pills.
slowly toward the square, but he could not make himself look at them for long. Nat went in one, and nothing happened to him. He resolved not to set
I
foot
hit
inside
this
another
one
house
out.
in that village. no matter
Already
what.
some northern lights,
Including Red, he quickened his pace.
some wedding cake,
Everyone was standing like
and some
statues in front
key
of a
lime
large
pie.
building with wide double doors.
Hope you're
Red did
doing
not
good,
think it could be an
Babylon.
inn. There was no sign, for one thing. Perhaps a village meeting place. He joined the silent circle and stared along with the rest. There was a man spread-eagled across the doors with thick spikes through wrists and shoulders. More spikes had been driven into his eyes to hold his head up. Dark, dry blood made bands down his cheeks. Step marks on the wood behind his boots showed that he had been alive when it was done. Again, anyway. Rand's breath caught. Not a man. Those black clothes, blacker than black, had never been worn. The wind touched into the cloak caught behind the body, which it did not always, he knew too well. The wind did not always touch those clothes, but there had never been any eyes in that pale, bloodless face. Murdraw, he breathed, and it was as if his speaking released all the others. They began to move again and breathe. Who? Nat began, and had to stop to swallow. Who could do this to a Fade? His voice squeaked at the end. I don't know, Ingar said. I do not know. He looked around, examining faces, or perhaps counting to be sure everyone was there. And I do not think we will learn anything here. We ride. Mount. Urine. Find the trail out of this place. Yes, my lord. Yes, with pleasure.
Some key lime pie, and then
They're still
we'll
heading south.
light round one.
They rode away, leaving the dead Murdraw where it hung, the wind stirring its black cloak. Urine was first beyond the wall, not waiting on Ingtar for a change, but Rand came close behind him. Chapter 11. Glimmers of the Pattern. For once, Ingtar called a halt to the day's march with the sun still golden above the horizon. The toughened Shinarans were feeling
This
the
one's
effects of what they
definitely
had seen in the village.
Tasty one.
Ingtar had not stopped so early before, and the campsite he chose had the look of a place that could be defended. It was a deep hollow, and big enough to hold all the men and horses comfortably. A sparse thicket of scrub oak and leatherleaf covered the outer slopes. The rim itself stood more than high enough to hide anyone in the campsite, even without the trees. The height nearly passed for a hill in that country. All I'm bloody saying, he heard Uno tell Ragan as they dismounted, is that I bloody saw her brand new, just before we found the goat-kissing halfman. The same flaming woman as at the flaming ferry. She was there, and then she bloody... You say what you bloody want to, but you watch how you flaming say it, or I'll bloody myself, and burn the goat-kissing hide, you sheep-gutted milk drinker. Rand paused with one foot on the ground and the other still on the stirrup. The same woman, but there wasn't any woman at the ferry. Just some curtains blowing in the wind. And she couldn't have gotten to that village ahead of us if there had been. The village. He shied away from the thought. Even more than the Fade nailed to the door, he wanted to forget that room, and the flies, and the people who were there and not there. The halfman had been real. Everybody
Hell
had seen
yeah,
that.
Babylon.
But the room. Maybe I'm finally going mad.
That's why I don't like leaving the house,
Lorraine was there
because
to talk to.
the less I gotta deal with people, the better it is.
You're well out of that. Now stay out. But am I out? What happened there? Pack horses and supplies in the middle, Ingtar commanded, as the Lancers went about setting up camp. Rub the horses down, then settle them again in case we must move quickly. Every man sleeps by his mount, and there'll be no fires tonight. Watch changes every 2 hours. Uno, I want scouts out, as far as they can ride and return before dark. I want to know what is out there. He's feeling it, Rand thought. It isn't just some dark friends and a few Trollocs and maybe a Fade anymore. Just some dark friends and a few Trollocs and maybe a Fade. Even a few days before, there would not have been any just about it. Even in the borderlands, even with the blight less than a day's ride, dark friends and Trollocs and Murdraw have been bad enough for a nightmare then. Before he had seen a murderall nailed to a door. What in the light could have done that? What not in the light? Before he had walked into a room where a family had their supper and their laughter cut off. I must have. Even in his own head, it did not sound very convincing. He had imagined the wind on the tower top, or the omelet saying, "Rand." He jumped as Ingtar struck his shoulder. Are you going to stay all night with one foot in the stirrup? Rand put his other foot on the ground. Ingtar, what happened back at that village?
Always sucks to have neighbors like
The
that.
same as the people at the ferry. That is what happened. The Fade? Ingtar shrugged and stared down at a flat canvas-wrapped bundle, large and square in his arms. He stared at it as if he saw hidden secrets he would rather not know. The Trollocs took them for food. They do it in villages and farms near the Blight, too, sometimes, if a raid gets past the border towers in the night. Sometimes we get the people back, and sometimes not. Sometimes we get them back and almost wish we hadn't. Trollocs don't always kill before they start butchering. And half-men like to have their fun. That's worse than what the Trollocs do. His voice was as steady as if he were talking of every day, and perhaps he was for a Shinaran soldier. Rand took a deep breath to steady his stomach. The Fade back there didn't have any fun, Ingtar. What could nail a murderall to a door alive? Ingtar hesitated, shaking his head, then pushed the big bundle at Rand. Here. Moraine Sedai told me to give you this at the first camp south of the Yaranin. I don't know what it is, but she said you would need it. She said to tell you to take care of it. Your life depends on it. He took it reluctantly. His skin prickled at the touch of the canvas. There was something soft inside. Cloth, maybe. Not the murderall either. What happened in that room? He realized suddenly that for him, the Fade, or even that room, was preferable to thinking about what Moraine might have sent him. I was told to tell you at the same time that if anything happens to me, the Lances will follow you. Me? Rand gasped, forgetting the bundle and everything else. Ingtar met his incredulous stare with a calm nod. That's crazy. I've never led anything but a flock of sheep, Ingtar. They wouldn't have followed me anyway. Besides, Moraine can't tell you who your second is. It's Uno. Uno and I were called to Lord Agomar the morning we left. Moraine said I was there, but it was Lord Agomar who told me. You are second, Rand. But why, Ingtar? Why? Moraine's hand was bright and clear in it, hers and the Amerlin's, pushing him along the path they had chosen. But he had to ask. The Shinaran looked as if he did not understand it either, but he was a soldier, used to odd commands in the endless war along the Blight. I heard rumors from the women's apartments that you were really a... He spread gauntleted hands. No matter. I know you deny it, just as you deny the look of your own face. Moraine Sedai says you're a shepherd, but I never saw a shepherd with a heron-marked blade. No matter. I'll not claim I would have chosen you myself, but I think you have it in you to do what is needed. You will do your duty, if it comes to it. Rand wanted to say it was no duty of his, but instead he said, Uno knows about this. Who else, Ingtar? All the Lances. When we Shinarans ride, every man knows who is next in line if the man in command falls. A chain unbroken, right down to the last man left, even if he's nothing but a horse holder.
Nice.
That way you see.
I don't know why she
Even if he is
complaining.
the
She
last
don't
man,
have to pay for
He
it.
is not just a straggler running and trying to stay alive. He has the command, and duty calls him to do what must be done. If I go to the last embrace of the mother, the duty is yours. You will find the horn, and you will take it where it belongs. You will. There was a peculiar emphasis in Ingtar's last words. The bundle in Rand's arms seemed to weigh 10 stone. Light. She could be 100 leagues off, and she still reaches out and tugs the leash. This way, Rand, that way. You're the dragon reborn, Rand. I don't want the duty, Ingtar. I will not take it. Light, I'm just a shepherd. Why won't anybody believe that? You will do your duty, Rand. When the man at the top of the chain fails, everything below him falls apart. Too much is falling
Let's
apart.
do one more
Too
and
much
then we'll
already.
light it up.
Peace, bury your soul, Randolph. Ingtar, But Ingtar was walking away, calling to see if Uno had the scouts out yet. Rand stared at the bundle in his arms and licked his lips. He was afraid he knew what was in it. He wanted to look, yet he wanted to throw it in a fire without opening it. He thought he might, if it would burn without anyone seeing what was inside. If he could be sure what was inside would burn at all. But he could not look there, where other eyes than his might see. He glanced around the camp. The Shinarans were unloading the pack animals, some already handing out a cold supper of dried meat and flatbread. Matt and Perrin tended their horses, and Loyal sat on a stone reading a book, with his long-stemmed pipe clenched between his teeth, the wisp of smoke curling above his head. Gripping the bundle, as if afraid he might drop it, Rand sneaked into the trees. He knelt in a small clearing sheltered by thick foliaged branches and set the bundle on the ground. For a time, he just stared at it. She wouldn't have. She couldn't. A small voice answered, "Oh, yes, she could. She could and would." Finally, he set about untying the small knots in the cords that bound it. Neat knots, tied with a precision that spoke loudly of Moraine's own hand. No servant had done this for her. She would not have dared let any servant see. When he had the last cord unfastened, he opened out what was folded inside with hands that felt numb, then stared at it, his mouth full of dust. It was all of one piece, neither woven, nor dyed, nor painted. A banner, white as snow, big enough to be seen the length of a field of battle. And across it marched a rippling figure like a serpent scaled in gold and crimson, but a serpent with 4 scaled legs, each tipped with 5 golden claws. A serpent with eyes like the sun, and a golden lion's mane. He had seen it once before, and Moraine had told him what it was. The banner of Luz Theron Telamon, Luz Theron Kinslayer, in the War of the Shadow. The banner of the dragon. "Look at that! Look what he's got now!" Matt burst into the clearing. Aaron came after him more slowly. "First fancy coats," Matt snarled, "and now a banner. We'll hear no end of lording it now, with..." Matt got close enough to see the banner clearly, and his jaw dropped. "Light!" He stumbled back a step. "Burn me!"
Yeah,
He had been there
and that's
too when Moraine named
that's
the
what
banner.
she gets
So
for
was Aaron.
complaining.
Anger boiled up
Now
in
she's
Rand.
got to pay
Angering
something.
Moraine in the Amerlin seat, pushing him, pulling him. He snatched up the banner in both hands and shook it at Matt, words boiling out uncontrollably. "That's right. The dragon's banner." Matt took another step back. "Moraine wants me to be a puppet on Tarvalon's strings, a false dragon for the Aes Sedai. She's going to push it down my throat whenever I want.
People are
But
definitely
I
stupid.
will not be used." Matt had backed up against a tree trunk. "A false dragon." He swallowed. "You? That's crazy." Aaron had not retreated. He squatted down with his thick arms on his knees and studied Rand with those bright golden eyes. In the evening shadows, they seemed to shine. "If the Aes Sedai want you for a false dragon..." He paused, frowning, thinking things through. Finally, he said quietly, "Rand, can you channel?" Matt gave a strangled gasp. Rand let the banner drop. He hesitated only a moment before nodding wearily. "I did not ask for it. I don't want it. But I do not think I know how to stop it." The room with the flies came back unbidden to his mind. "I don't think they'll let me stop." "Burn me," Matt breathed. "Blood and bloody ashes. They'll kill us, you know. All of us. Perrin and me as well as you. If Ingtar and the others find out, they will cut our bloody throats for dark friends. What? They'll probably think we are part of stealing the horn and killing those people in Faldara." "Shut up, Matt," Perrin said calmly. "Don't tell me to shut up. If Ingtar doesn't kill us, Rand will go mad and do it for him. Burn me! Burn me!" Matt slid down the tree to sit on the ground. "Why didn't they gentle you? If the Aes Sedai know, why didn't they gentle you? I never heard of them letting a man who can wield the power just walk away." "They don't all know," Rand sighed. "The Amerlin seat? She knows? Like, no wonder she looked at me so strange." And Moraine told me I'm the Dragon Reborn. And then they said I could go wherever I wanted. Don't you see, Matt? They're trying to use me. It's a shame you being able to channel, Matt muttered. If I were you, I'd be halfway to the Arth Ocean by now. And I would not stop until I found some place where there were no Aes Sedai, and never likely to be any. And no people. I mean, well, shut up, Matt, Baron said. Why are you here, Rand? The longer you stay around people, the more likely it is somebody will find out and send for Aes Sedai. Aes Sedai who won't tell you to go on about your business. He paused, scratching his head over that. And Matt's right about Ingtar. I don't doubt he would name you Darkfriend and kill you. Kill all of us, maybe. He seems to like you, but he'd still do it, I think. A false dragon? The others. Massima wouldn't need that much excuse for you. So why aren't you gone? Rand shrugged. I was going, but first the Amerlin came, and then the horn was stolen, and the dagger, and Moraine said Matt was dying, and... Light, I thought I could stay with you until we found the dagger, at least. I thought I could help with that. Maybe I was wrong. You came because of the dagger, Matt said quietly. He rubbed his nose and grimaced. I never thought of that. I never thought you wanted to... Ah! Are you feeling all right? I mean, you aren't going mad already, are you? Rand dug a pebble out of the ground and threw it at him. Ouch! Matt rubbed his arm. I was just asking. I mean, all those fancy clothes and all that talk about being a lord. Well, that isn't exactly right in the head. I was trying to get rid of you, fool. I was afraid I'd go mad and hurt you. His eyes dropped to the banner and his voice lowered. I will eventually if I don't stop it. Light, I don't know how to stop it. That is what I'm afraid of, Matt said, standing. No offense, Rand. But I think I will just sleep as far away from you as I can, if you don't mind. That's if you are staying. I heard about a fellow who could channel once. A merchant's guard told me. Before the Red Aja found him, he woke one morning and his whole village was smashed flat. All the houses, all the people, everything but the bed he was sleeping in. Like a mountain had rolled over them. Baron said, in that case, Matt, you should sleep cheek by jowl with him. I may be a fool, but I intend to be a live fool. Matt hesitated, looking sideways at Rand. Look, I know you came along to help me, and I am grateful. I really am. But you just are not the same anymore. You understand that, don't you? He waited as if he expected an answer. None came. Finally, he vanished into the trees, back toward the camp. What about you? Rand asked. Aaron shook his head, shaggy curls swinging. I don't know, Rand. You are the same, then again you aren't. A man channeling. My mother used to frighten me with that when I was little. I just do not know. He stretched out his hand and touched a corner of the banner. I think I would burn this if I were you. Then I'd run so far, so fast, no Aes Sedai would ever find me. Matt was right about that. He stood up, squinting at the western sky, beginning to turn red with the sinking sun. Time to get back to the camp. You think on what I said, Rand. I'd run. But maybe you can't run. Think of that, too. His yellow eyes seemed to look inward, and he sounded tired. Sometimes you can't run. Then he was gone, too. Rand knelt there, staring at the banner spread out on the ground. Well, sometimes you can run, he muttered. Only maybe she gave me this to make me run. Maybe she has something waiting for me if I run. I won't do what she wants, I won't. I'll bury it right here. But she said my life may depend on it. And I said I never lie so you can see it. Suddenly his shoulders shook with silent laughter. Now I'm talking to myself. Maybe I am going mad already. When he returned to the camp, he carried the banner wrapped in the canvas once more, tied with knots less neat than Moraine's had been. The light had begun to fail, and the shadow of the rim covered half the hollow. The soldiers were settling in, all with their horses by their sides, lances propped to hand. Matt and Perrin were bedding down alongside their horses. Rand gave them a sad look, then fetched Red, standing where he had been left with his reins dangling, and went to the other side of the hollow where Huron had joined Loyal. The Ogier had given over reading and was examining the half-buried stone on which he had been sitting, tracing something on the stone with the long stem of his pipe. Huron stood and gave Rand something just short of a bow. "Hope you don't mind me making my bed here, Lord. Rand. I was just listening to the builder here."
There you are, Rand,
Loyal said.
I think this stone was worth once. See, it's weathered, but it looks as if it was a column of some kind. And there are markings also. I can't quite make them out, but they look familiar somehow.
"Maybe you'll be able to see them better in the morning," Rand said. He pulled the saddlebags from Red. "I'll be glad of your company, Huron. I'm glad of anybody's company who isn't afraid of me. How much longer can I have it, though?" He shifted everything into one side of the saddlebag, spare shirts and breeches and woolen stockings, sewing kit, tinder box, tin plate and cup, a greenwood box with knife and fork and spoon, packet of dried meat and flatbread for emergency rations, and all the other traveler's necessities, then stuffed the canvas-wrapped banner into the empty pocket. It bulged, the straps barely reaching the buckles, but then the other side bulged now too. It would do. Loyal and Huron seemed to sense his mood, leaving him in silence while he stripped saddle and bridle from Red, rubbed the big bay down with tufts of grass torn from the ground, then resaddled it. Rand refused their offer of food. He did not think he could have stomached the best meal he had ever seen just then. All three of them made their beds there beside the stone, a simple matter of a blanket folded for a pillow and cloak to cover. The camp was silent now, but Rand lay awake past the fall of full dark. His mind darted back and forth. The banner. What is she trying to make me do? The village. What could kill a fate like that? Worst of all, the house in the village. Did it really happen? Am I going mad already? Do I run or do I stay? I have to stay. I have to help Matt find the dagger. An exhausted sleep finally came. With sleep, unbidden, the void surrounded him, flickering with an uneasy glow that disturbed his dreams. Adan Thane stared northward out into the night, past the only fire in his camp, smiling a fixed smile that never touched his eyes. He still thought of himself as Padan Thane. Padan Thane was the core of him. But he had been changed, and he knew it. He knew many things now, more than any of his old masters could suspect. He had been a dark friend long years before Baalzamon summoned him and set him on the track of the three young men from Emmons Field, distilling what he knew of them, distilling him, and feeding the essence back so that he could feel them, smell where they had been, follow wherever they ran, especially the one. A part of him still cringed, remembering what Baalzamon had done to him. But it was a small part, hidden, suppressed. He was changed. Following the three had led him into Shadar Logoth. He had not wanted to go, but he had had to obey. Then, and in Shadar Logoth, Thane drew a deep breath and fingered the ruby-hilted dagger at his belt. That had come from Shadar Logoth too. It was the only weapon he carried, the only one he needed. It felt like a part of him. He was whole within himself now. That was all that mattered. He cast a glance to either side of his fire. The 12 dark friends who were left, their once fine clothes now rumpled and dirty, huddled in the darkness to one side, staring not at the fire but at him. On the other squatted his Trollocs, 20 in number, the all too human eyes in those animal-twisted men's faces, following his every move like mice watching a cat. It had been a struggle at first, waking each morning to find himself not completely whole, to find the Murdral back in command, raging and demanding they go north, to the Blight, to Shale Ghul. But bit by bit, those mornings of weakness grew shorter, until he remembered the feel of the hammer in his hand, driving the spikes in, and he smiled. This time it did touch his eyes with the joy of sweet memory. weeping from the dark caught his ear, and his smile faded. I should never have let the Trollocs take so many. An entire village to slow them down. If those few houses at the ferry had not been deserted, perhaps. But Trollocs were greedy by nature. In the euphoria of watching the Murdrall die, he had not paid attention as he should. He glanced at the Trollocs. Any one of them was nearly twice as tall as he, strong enough to break him to flinders with one hand. Yet they edged back, still crouching. Kill them. All. You may feed, but then make a pile of everything that remains. For our friends to find. Put the heads on top. Neatly now. He laughed and cut it off short. Go! The Trollocs scrambled away, drawing scythe-like swords and raising spiked axes. In moments, shrieks and bellows rose from where the villagers were bound. Pleas for mercy and children's screams were cut off by solid thuds and unpleasant squishing noises, like melons being broken. Thane turned his back on the cacophony to look at his dark friends. They were his too, body and soul, such souls as they had left. Every one of them was as mired as deeply as he had been before he found his way out. Every one with nowhere to go except to follow him. Their eyes clung to fearful, pleading. You think they will grow hungry again before we find another village or a farm? They may. You think I will be letting them have some more of you? Well, perhaps one or two. There aren't any more horses to spare. The others were only commoners, one woman managed in an unsteady voice. Dirt streaked her face with a finely cut dress that marked her as a merchant and wealthy. Stained the good gray cloth and a long skirt. They were peasants. We have served. I have served. Thane cut her off, his easy tone making his words all the harder. What are you to me? Less than peasants. Herd cattle for the Trollocs.
Hell yeah.
If you want to live, cattle, you must be useful. The woman's face broke. She sobbed, and suddenly all the rest were babbling, telling him how useful they were. Men and women who had had influence and position before they were called to fulfill their oaths at Faldara. They spilled out the names of important, powerful people whom they knew in the borderlands, in Kyrian, and other lands. They babbled of the knowledge they alone had of this land or that, of political situations, alliances, intrigues. All the things they could tell him if he let them serve him. The noise of them blended with the sound of the Trollocs' slaughter and fit right in. Thane ignored all of it. He had no fear of turning his back on them, not since they had seen the fate dealt with, and went to his prize. Kneeling, he ran his hands over the ornate golden chest, feeling the power locked inside. He had to have a Trolloc carry it. He did not trust the humans enough to load it on a horse and pack saddle. Some dreams of power might be strong enough to overcome even fear of him. The Trollocs never dreamed of anything except killing. And he had not yet puzzled out how to open it. But that would come. Everything would come. Everything. Unsheathing the dagger, he laid it atop the chest before settling himself down beside the fire. That blade was a better guard than Trolloc or human. They had all seen what happened when he used it once. None would come within a span of that bared blade without his command, and then reluctantly. Lying there in his blankets, he stared northward. He could not feel Althor now. The distance between them was too great. Or perhaps Althor was doing his vanishing trick. Sometimes in the keep, the boy had suddenly vanished from Thane's senses. He did not know how, but always Althor came back. Just as suddenly as he had gone. He would come back this time, too. This time you come to me, Randolph Thor. Before I followed you like a dog driven on the trail. But now you follow me. His laughter was a cackle that even he knew was mad. But he did not care. Madness was a part of him, too. Come to me, Althor. The dance has not even begun yet. We'll dance on Toman Head and I'll be free of you. I'll see you dead at last.
Chapter 12. Woven in the Pattern. Egwene hurried after Nynaeve toward the knot of Aes Sedai around the Amerlin seat's horse-borne palanquin. Her desire to know what had caused the turmoil in Faldara kept outweighing even her worry over Rand. He was beyond her reach, for the moment. Bella, her shaggy mare, was with the Aes Sedai's horses, and Nynaeve's mount, too. The warders, hands on sword hilts and eyes searching everywhere, made a steel circle around the Aes Sedai and the palanquin. They were an island of relative calm in the courtyard, where Shienaran soldiers still ran amid the keep's horrified inhabitants. Egwene pushed in beside Nynaeve. The two of them all but ignored after a single sharp glance from the warders. All knew they would be leading with the Amerlin, and caught enough in the crowd's murmurs to learn of an arrow that had flashed seemingly from nowhere, and a bowman yet uncaught. Egwene stopped, wide-eyed, too shocked even to think that she was surrounded by Aes Sedai. An attempt on the life of the Amerlin seat. It went beyond thinking of. The Amerlin sat in her palanquin with the curtains drawn back, the blood-stained rip in her sleeve drawing all eyes, and faced down Lord Agilmar. "You will find the bowman, or you will not, my son. Either way, my business in Tar Valon is as urgent as that of Ingtar on his quest. I leave now." "But mother," Agilmar protested, "this attempt on your life changes everything. We still do not know who sent the man or why. An hour more and I will have the bowman and the answers for you." The Amerlin barked a laugh with no amusement in it. "You'll need slyer bait or finer nets to catch this fish, my son. By the time you have the man, it will be too late in the day for leaving. There are too many who would cheer to see me dead for me to worry over much about this one. You may send me news of what you find, if you find anything at all." Her eyes traveled around the towers overlooking the courtyard, and the ramparts and archers' balconies, still jammed with people, though silent now. The arrow had to have come from one of those places. "I think this bowman has already fled from Faldara." "But, mother," the woman in the palanquin cut him off with a sharp gesture of finality. Not even the Lord of Faldara could press the Amerlin seat too far. Her eyes came to rest on Egwene and Nynaeve, piercing eyes that seemed to Egwene to be seeing everything about herself that she wanted to keep secret. Egwene took a step back, then caught herself and dropped a curtsy, wondering if that were proper. No one had ever explained to her the protocol of meeting the Amerlin seat. Nynaeve kept her back straight and returned the Amerlin's stare, but she fumbled for Egwene's hand and gripped as hard as Egwene did. "So these are your two, Moiraine," the Amerlin said. Moiraine gave the barest nod, and the other Aes Sedai turned to stare at the two women from Emond's Field. Egwene swallowed. They all looked as if they knew things other people did not, and it was no help at all to know that they truly did. "Yes, I sense a fine spark in each of them. But what will kindle from it? That's the question, Tudor." Egwene's mouth felt dry as dust. She had seen Master Podwin, the carpenter back home, look at his tools much the same way as the Amerlin was looking at the two of them. This one for this purpose, that one for that. The Amerlin said abruptly, "It is time we were gone. To horse. Lord Agilmar and I can say what needs to be said, without you all gawking like novices on a free day. To horse!" At her command, the warders scattered to their mounts, still wary, and the Aes Sedai, all but Lyanna, glided away from the palanquin to their own horses. As Egwene and Nynaeve turned to obey, a servant appeared at Lord Agilmar's shoulder with a silver chalice. Agilmar took it with a dissatisfied twist to his mouth. "With this cup from my hand, mother, take my wish that you fare well on this day and every—" Whatever else they said was lost to Egwene as she scrambled onto Bella. By the time she had given the shaggy mare a pat and arranged her skirts, the palanquin was already moving toward the open gates, its horses stepping without rein or lead. Lyanna rode beside the palanquin, her staff propped at her stirrup. Egwene and Nynaeve led the horses along behind with the rest of the Aes Sedai. Roars and cheers from the crowds lining the town's streets greeted the procession, all but drowning the thunder of the drummers and the blare of the trumpeters. Warders led the column with the banner bearing the white flame waving in ripples, and rode guard around the Aes Sedai, keeping the mass of people back. Archers and pikemen, the flame blazoned on their chests, followed behind in precise ranks. The trumpets fell silent as the column wound its way out of the town and returned, yet the sounds of cheering from within the town followed still. Egwene glanced back often until trees and hills hid Falcon walls and towers. Nynaeve, riding alongside, shook her head. Rand will be all right. He has Lord Ingtar and 20 militias with him. In any case, there's nothing we can do about it. Nothing either of us can do. She glanced toward Moiraine. The Aes Sedai's trim white mare and Lan's tall black stallion made an odd pair, off to one side by themselves. Not yet. The column angled westward as it traveled, and it did not cover the ground quickly. Even footmen in half armor could not move fast through the Shinaran hills, not and maintain the pace for long. Still, they pushed as hard as they could. Camps came late each night, the Amerlin allowing no stop until barely enough light remained to pitch the tents, flattened white domes just tall enough to stand in. Each pair of Aes Sedai from the same Ajah had one, while the Amerlin and the Keeper had tents to themselves. Moiraine shared the tent of her two sisters of the Blue. The soldiers slept on the ground in their own encampment, and the warders wrapped themselves in their cloaks near the tents of the Aes Sedai to whom they were bonded. The tent shared by the Red Sisters looked oddly lonely without any warders, while that of the Green seemed almost festive, the two Aes Sedai often sitting outside long past dark to talk with the 4 warders they had brought between them. Lan came once to the tent Egwene shared with Nynaeve, taking the wisdom into the night a little distance away. Egwene peered around the tent flap to watch. She could not hear what they said, except that Nynaeve eventually erupted in anger and came slouching back to wrap herself in her blankets, and refused to talk at all. Egwene thought her cheeks were wet, though she hid her face with a corner of her blanket. Lan stood watching the tent from the darkness for a long time before he went away. After that, he did not come again. Moiraine did not come near them, giving them only a nod in passing. She seemed to spend her waking hours speaking with the other Aes Sedai, all but the Red Sisters, drawing them aside one by one as they rode. The Amerlin allowed few stops for rest, and those short. Maybe she doesn't have time for us anymore, Egwene observed sadly. Moiraine was the one Aes Sedai she knew. Perhaps, though she did not like to admit it, the only one she was sure she could trust. She found us, and we are on our way to Tar Valon. I suppose she has other things to concern her now. Nynaeve snorted softly. I'll believe she is done with us when she's dead, or we are. She is sly, that one. Other Aes Sedai came to their tent. Egwene almost jumped out of her skin that first night out of Faldara, when the tent flap was pushed aside, and a plump, square-faced Aes Sedai, with graying hair and a vaguely distracted look in her dark eyes, ducked into their tent. She glanced at the lantern hanging at the highest point of the tent, and the flame rose a little higher. Egwene thought she felt something, thought she almost saw something about the Aes Sedai when the flame grew brighter. Moiraine had told her that one day, when she had more training, she would be able to see when another woman channeled, and to tell a woman who could channel even if she did nothing. I'm Varen Nathwin, the woman said with a smile, and you are Egwene Alvir and Nynaeve Almira, from the Two Rivers, which was once Manethera. Strong blood, that. It sings. Egwene exchanged glances with Nynaeve as they got to their feet. Is this a summons to the Amerlin seat? Egwene asked. Varen laughed. The Aes Sedai had a smudge of ink on her nose. Oh my, no. The Amerlin has more important things to deal with than 2 young women who are not even novices yet. Although, you never can tell. You both have considerable potential, especially you, Nynaeve. One day... She paused, rubbing a finger thoughtfully right atop the ink smudge. But this is not one day. I am here to give you a lesson, Egwene. You have been poking in ahead of yourself, I fear. Nervously, Egwene looked at Nynaeve. What have I done? Nothing that I'm aware of. Oh, nothing wrong, not exactly. Somewhat dangerous, perhaps, but not exactly wrong. Varen lowered herself to the canvas floor, folding her legs under her. Sit, both of you, sit. I don't mean to crane my neck. She shifted around until she had a comfortable position. Sit. Egwene settled cross-legged across from the Aes Sedai and did her best not to look at Nynaeve. No need to look guilty until I know if I am, and maybe not then. What is it I've done that's dangerous but not exactly wrong? Why, I've been channeling the power child. Egwene could only gape. Nynaeve burst out, That is ridiculous! Why are we going to Tar Valon if not for that? Moiraine has... I mean, Moiraine Sedai has been giving me lessons, Egwene managed. Varen held up her hands for quiet, and they fell silent. She might seem vague, but she was Aes Sedai after all.
There's not one done.
Do you think
That one
Aes
got
Sedai
first near
immediately
the
teach
last.
every girl
That
who
was
says she
road
wants to be
sweep.
one of us how to channel? Well, I suppose you are not that. Every girl, but not the same. She shook her head gravely. Then why did she? Nynaeve demanded. There had been no lessons for her, and Egwene was still not sure if it rankled Nynaeve or not. Because Egwene had already channeled, Varen said patiently. So have I. Nynaeve did not sound happy about it. Your circumstances are different, child. That you are still alive shows you weathered the various crises, and did it on your own. I think you know how lucky you are. Of every 4 women forced to do what you did, only one survives. Of course, Wilder's... Varen grimaced. Forgive me, but I am afraid that is what we in the White Tower often call women who, without any training, have managed some rough control. Random and barely enough to be called control. Usually like you, but still control of a sort. Wilders have difficulties, it is true. Almost always they have built up walls to keep themselves from knowing what it was they were doing, and those walls interfere with conscious control. The longer those walls have to build, the harder it is to tear them down. But if they can be demolished, well, some of the most adept sisters ever have been Wilders. Nynaeve shifted irritably and looked at the entrance as if thinking of leaving. I don't see what any of that has to do with me, Egwene said. Varen blinked at her, almost as if wondering where she had come from. With you? Why, nothing. Your problem is quite different. Most girls who want to become Aes Sedai, even most girls with the seed inside them like you, are afraid of it too. Even after they reach the tower, even after they've learned what to do and how, for months they need to be led step by a sister, or by one of the accepted. But not you. From what Moiraine tells me, you leaped into it as soon as you knew you could, fumbling your way through the dark with never a thought of whether there was a bottomless pit under your next step. Oh, there have been others like you. You are not unique. Moiraine was one herself. Once she knew what you had done, there was nothing for it but for her to begin teaching you. Did Moiraine never explain any of this to you? Never. Egwene wished her voice was not so breathless. She had other matters to deal with. Nynaeve snorted softly. Well, Moiraine has never believed in telling anyone anything they did not need to know. Knowing serves no real purpose, but then neither does not knowing. Myself, I always prefer knowing to not. Is there one? A pit, I mean? Obviously not so far, Varen said, tilting her head. But the next step? She shrugged. You see, child, the more you try to touch the true source, the more you try to channel the one power, the easier it becomes to actually do it. Yes, in the beginning, you stretch out to the source, and more often than not, it is like grasping at air. Or you actually touch Saidar, but even when you feel the one power flowing through you, you find you can do nothing with it. Or you do something and it isn't what you intended at all. That is the danger. Usually with guidance and training and the girl's own fear slowing her down, the ability to touch the source and the ability to channel the power come together with the ability to control what she is doing. But you began trying to channel without anyone there to teach you any control at all of what you do. I know you don't think you're very far along, and you are not, but you are like someone who has taught herself to run up hills, sometimes at least, without ever learning how to run down the other side, or to walk. Sooner or later, you're going to fall if you don't learn the rest of it. Now, I'm not talking about anything like what happens when one of those poor men begins channeling. You will not go mad. You won't die, not with sisters to teach and guide you. But what might you do entirely by accident, never meaning to? For an instant, the vagueness had dropped from Varen's eyes. For an instant, it seemed the Aes Sedai's gaze had flicked from Egwene to Nynaeve as sharply as the Amerlin's had. Your innate abilities are strong, child, and they will grow stronger. You must learn to control them before you harm yourself, or someone else, or a great many people. That is what Moiraine was trying to teach you. That is what I will try to help you with tonight, and what a sister will help you with every night until we put you into Shiriam's most capable hands. She is mistress of novices. Egwene thought, can she know about Ran? It isn't possible. She'd never have let him leave Faldara if she even suspected. But she was sure she'd not imagined what she saw. Thank you, Varen Sedai. I will try. Nynaeve rose smoothly to her feet. I will go sit by the fire and leave you two alone. You should stay, Varen said. You could profit by it. From what Moiraine has told me, it should take only a little training for you to be raised to the accepted. Nynaeve hesitated only a moment before shaking her head firmly. I thank you for the offer, but I can wait until we reach Tarvalin. Egwene, if you need me, I will be... By any gauge, Varen cut in. You are a woman grown, Nynaeve. Usually the younger a novice, the better she does. Not with the training necessarily, but because a novice is expected to do as she is told, when she is told, and without question. It is really only of use once the actual training has reached a certain point. A hesitation in the wrong place, then, or a doubt of what you've been told to do, can have tragic consequences. But it is better to follow the discipline all the time. The accepted, on the other hand, are expected to question things, as it is felt they know enough to know what questions to ask and when. Which do you think you would prefer? Nynaeve's hands tightened on her skirt, and she looked at the tent flap again, frowning. Finally, she gave a short nod and settled back down on the floor. I suppose I might as well, she said. Good, Varen said. Now, you already know this part, Egwene, but for Nynaeve's sake, I will take you through it step by step. In time, it will become second nature. You will do it all faster than you can think of it, but now it is best to go slowly. Close your eyes, please. It goes better in the beginning if you have no distractions at all. Egwene closed her eyes. There was a pause. Nynaeve, Varen said. Please, close your eyes. It will really go better. Another pause. Thank you, child. Now, you must empty yourself. Empty your thoughts. There is only one thing in your mind. The bud of a flower. Only that. Only the bud. You can see it in every detail. You can smell it. You can feel it. Every vein of every leaf. Every curve of every petal. You can feel the sap pulsing. Feel it. Know it. Be it. You and the bud are the same. You are one. You are the bud. Her voice droned on hypnotically, but Egwene no longer really heard. She had done this exercise before with Moiraine. It was slow, but Moiraine had said it would come more quickly with practice. Inside herself, she was a rosebud, red petals curled tightly. Yet suddenly there was something else. Light. Light pressing on the petals. Slowly the petals unfolded, turning toward the light, absorbing the light. The rose and the light were one. Egwene and the light were one. She could feel the merest trickle of it seeping through her. She stretched for more, strained for more. In an instant it was all gone, rose and light. Moiraine had also said it could not be forced. With a sigh, she opened her eyes. Nynaeve had a grim look on her face. Varen was as calm as ever. You cannot make it happen, the Aes Sedai was saying. You must let it happen. You must surrender to the power before you can control it. This is complete foolishness, Nynaeve muttered. I don't feel like a flower. If anything, I feel like a blackthorn bush. I think I will wait by the fire after all. As you wish, Varen said. Did I mention that novices do chores? They wash dishes, scrub floors, do laundry, serve at table, all sorts of things. I myself think the servants do a better job of it by far, but it is generally felt that such labor builds character. Oh, you are staying? Good. Well, child, remember that even a blackthorn bush has flowers sometimes, beautiful and white among the thorns. We will try it one at a time. Now, from the beginning, Egwene. Close your eyes. Several times before Varen left, Egwene felt the flow of the power through her, but it was never very strong, and the most she managed with it was to produce a stir in the air that made the tent flap stir slightly. She was sure a sneeze could have done as much. She had done better with Moiraine, sometimes at least. She wished it was Moiraine doing the teaching. Nynaeve never even felt a glimmer, or so she said. By the end, her eyes were set, and her mouth so tight that Egwene was afraid she was about to begin berating Varen as if the Aes Sedai were a village woman intruding on her privacy. But Varen simply told her to close her eyes once more, this time without Egwene. Egwene was sitting, watching the other two between her yawns. The night had grown late, well past the time she would usually be asleep. Nynaeve wore a face like weak old death, her eyes clamped shut as if she never meant to open them, and her hands white-knuckled fists in her lap. Egwene hoped the wisdom's temper did not break loose, not after she had held it this long. Feel the flow through you, Varen was saying. Her voice did not change, but suddenly there was a gleam in her eyes. Feel the flow of the power, flow like a breeze, a gentle stirring in the air. Egwene sat up straight. This was how Varen had guided her each time she had actually had the power flowing through her. A soft breeze, the slightest movement of air, soft. Abruptly, the stacked blankets burst into flame like fat wood. Nynaeve opened her eyes with a yell. Egwene was not sure if she screamed or not. All Egwene knew was that she was on her feet, trying to kick the burning blankets outside before they set the tent on fire. Before she managed the second kick, the flames vanished, leaving wispy smoke rising from a charred mass and the smell of burned wool. Well, Varen said. Well, I did not expect to have to douse a fire. Don't faint on me, child. It's all right now. I took care of it. I was angry. Nynaeve spoke through trembling lips and a bloodless face. I heard you talking about a breeze telling me what to do, and fire just popped into my head. I didn't mean to burn anything. It was just a small fire in my head. She shuddered. I suppose it was a small fire at that. Varen barked a laugh that was gone with another look at Nynaeve's face. Are you all right, child? If you feel ill, I can... Nynaeve shook her head, and Varen nodded. Rest is what you need, both of you. I've worked you too hard. You must rest. The Amerlin will have us all up and away before first light. Standing, she towed the charred blankets. I will have some more blankets brought to you. I hope this shows both of you how important control is. You must learn to do what you mean to do, and nothing more. Aside from harming someone else, if you draw more of the power than you can safely handle, and you cannot handle much yet, but it will grow. If you draw too much, you can destroy yourself. You can die. Or you can burn yourself out, destroy what ability you have. As if she had not told them they were walking a knife edge, she added a cheerful, sleep well. With that, she was gone. Egwene put her arms around Nynaeve and hugged her tight. It is all right, Nynaeve. There is no need to be frightened. Once you learn to control... Nynaeve gave a croaking laugh. I am not frightened. She glanced sideways at the smoking blankets and twitched her eyes away. It takes more than a little fire to frighten me. But she did not look at the blankets again, even when a warder came to take them away and leave Mew. Varen did not come again, as she said she would not. Indeed, as they journeyed on south and west, day by day, as fast as the footmen could move, Varen paid the two women from Emmons Field no more mind than Moiraine did, than any of the Aes Sedai. They were not precisely unfriendly, the Aes Sedai, but rather distant and aloof, as if preoccupied. Their coolness heightened Egwene's unease, and brought back all the tales she had heard as a child. Her mother had always told her the tales about Aes Sedai were a lot of fool men's nonsense, but neither her mother nor any other woman in Emmons Field had ever met an Aes Sedai before Moiraine came there. She herself had spent a good deal of time with Moiraine, and Moiraine was proof to her that not all Aes Sedai were like the tales, cold manipulators and merciless destroyers, breakers of the world. She knew now that those, at least, the breakers of the world, had been male Aes Sedai, when there were such, in the Age of Legends. But it did not help a great deal. Not all Aes Sedai were like the tales, but how many, and which? The Aes Sedai who came to the tent each night were so mixed that they did not help at all in clearing her thoughts. Alviarin was as cool and businesslike as a merchant come to buy wool and tabak, surprised that Nynaeve was part of the lesson, but accepted, sharp in her criticisms, but always ready to try again. Alana Mosvani laughed and spent as much time talking about the world and men as she did teaching. Alana showed too much interest in Rand and Perrin and Matt for Egwene's comfort, though, especially Rand. Worst of all was Leandrin, the only one who wore her shawl. The others had all packed them away before leaving Faldara. Leandrin sat fingering her red fringe and talked little, and reluctantly at that. She questioned Egwene and Nynaeve as if they had been accused of a crime, and her questions were all about the three boys. She kept it up until Nynaeve threw her out. Egwene was not sure why Nynaeve did so, and then she left with a warning. Watch yourselves, my daughters. You are in your village no longer. Now you dabble your toes where there are things to bite you. Finally, the column reached the village of Meadow on the banks of the Mora, which ran along the border between Shinar and Arafel and so into the river Aranon. Egwene was sure it was the Aes Sedai's questions about Rand that had made her start dreaming of him, that and worrying about him, about whether he and the others had to follow the Horn of Valir into the Blight. The dreams were always bad, but at first they were just the ordinary sort of nightmare. By the night they reached Meadow, the dreams had changed, though. Pardon, Aes Sedai, Egwene asked diffidently, but have you seen Moiraine Sedai? The slender Aes Sedai waved her away and hurried on down the crowded, torchlit village street, calling for someone to be careful with her horse. The woman was of the yellow Aja, though not wearing her shawl now. Egwene knew no more of her than that, not even her name. Meadow was a small village, though Egwene was shocked to realize that what she now thought of as a small village was as big as Emmons Field, and it was overwhelmed now with many more outsiders than there were inhabitants. Horses and people filled the narrow streets, jostling to the docks past villagers who knelt whenever an unseeing Aes Sedai sped by. Harsh torchlight lit everything. The two docks jutted out into the River Mora like stone fingers, and each hosted a pair of small, two-masted ships. Their horses were being hoisted on board by booms and cables and canvas cradles under their bellies. More of the ships, high-sided and stout with lanterns topping their masts, crowded the moon-streaked river, already loaded or waiting their turn. Rowboats ferried out archers and pikemen, the raised pikes making the boats look like gigantic bricklebacks swimming on the surface. On the left-hand dock, Egwene found Anaya, watching the loading and chivying those who were not moving fast enough. Though she had never said more than 2 words to Egwene, Anaya seemed different from the others, more like a woman from home. Egwene could picture her baking in her kitchen. She could not see any of the others so. Anaya Sedai, have you seen Moiraine Sedai? I need to talk to her. The Aes Sedai looked around with an absent frown. What? Oh, it's you, child. Moiraine is gone, and your friend Nynaeve is already out on the River Queen. I had to bundle her onto a boat myself, shouting that she would not go without you. Light, what a scramble! You should be aboard yourself. Find a boat going out to the River Queen. You two will be traveling with the Armerlin seat, so mind yourself once you're on board. No scenes or tantrums. Which ship is Moiraine Sedai's? Moiraine isn't on a ship, girl. She's gone. 2 days gone. And the Armerlin is in a taking over it. Anaya grimaced and shook her head, though most of her attention was still on the workers. First, Moiraine vanishes with Lan, then Leandrin right on Moiraine's heels, and then Varen. None of them with so much as a word for anyone. Varen did not even take her warder. Tomas is chewing nails with worry over her. The Aes Sedai glanced at the sky. The waxing moon shone without the hindrance of clouds. We will have to call the wind again, and the Armerlin will not be pleased with that either. She says she wants us on our way to Tar Valon within an hour, and she will brook no delays. I would not want to be Moiraine or Leandrin or Varen when she sees them next. They'll wish they were novices again. Why, child, what's the matter? Egwene drew a deep breath. Moiraine gone? She can't be. I have to tell somebody. Somebody who won't laugh at me. She imagined Anaya back in Emmons Field, listening to her daughter's problems. The woman fit the picture. Anaya Sedai? Rand is in trouble. Anaya gave her a considering look. That tall boy from your village? Missing him already, are you? Well, I shouldn't be surprised if he is in trouble. Young men his age usually are. Though it was the other one, Matt, who had the look of trouble. Very well, child. I don't mean to mock you or make light. What kind of trouble and how do you know? He and Lord Ingtar must have the horn and be back in Faldara by now. Or else they've had to follow it into the Blight, and there's nothing to do about that. I don't think they're in the Blight or back in Faldara. I had a dream. She said it half defiantly. It sounded silly when she said it, but it had seemed so real. A nightmare for true, but real. First there had been a man with a mask over his face and fire in place of his eyes. Despite the mask, she had thought he was surprised to see her. His look had frightened her till she thought her bones would break from shivering, but suddenly he vanished, and she saw Rand sleeping on the ground, wrapped in a cloak. A woman had been standing over him, looking down. Her face was in shadow, but her eyes seemed to shine like the moon, and Egwene had known she was evil. Then there was a flash of light, and they were gone, both of them. And behind it all, almost like another thing altogether, was the feel of danger, as if a trap was just beginning to snap shut on an unsuspecting lamb, a trap with many jaws. As though time had slowed, and she could watch the iron jaws creep closer together. The dream had not faded with waking the way dreams did, and the danger felt so strong she still wanted to look over her shoulder, only somehow she knew that it was aimed at Rand, not at her. She wondered if the woman had been Moiraine, and upbraided herself with the thought. Leandrin fit that part better, or perhaps Alana. She'd been interested in Rand too. She could not bring herself to tell Anaya. Formally, she said, Anaya Sedai, I know it sounds foolish, but he is in danger. Great danger. I know it. I could feel it. I still can. Anaya wore a thoughtful look. Well, now, she said softly, that's a possibility I'll wager no one has considered. You may be a dreamer. It is a small chance, child, but we haven't had one of those in, 400 or 500 years. And dreaming is close linked to foretelling. If you really can dream, it may be that you can foretell as well. That would be a finger in the red's eye. Of course, it could be just an ordinary nightmare, brought on by a late night and cold food and us traveling so hard since we left Faldara, and you missing your young man. Much more likely. Yes, child, I know. You are worried about him. Did your dream indicate what kind of danger? Egwene shook her head. He just vanished, and I felt danger and evil. I felt it even before he vanished. She shivered and rubbed her hands together. I can still feel it. Well, we will talk about it more on the River Queen. If you are a dreamer, I will see you have the training. Moiraine should be here to... You there! The Aes Sedai paused suddenly, and Egwene jumped. A tall man who had just sat down on a cask of wine jumped too. Several others quickened their step. That's for loading aboard, not resting on... We will talk on the boat, child. No, you fool, you can't carry it by yourself. Do you want to hurt yourself? Anaya went striding off down the dock, giving the unfortunate villagers a rougher side of her tongue than Egwene would have suspected she had. Egwene peered into the dark, toward the south. He was out there, somewhere. Not in Faldara, not in the Blight. She was sure of it. Hold on, you wool-headed idiot. If you get yourself killed before I can get you out of this, I will skin you alive. It did not occur to her to ask how she was going to get him out of anything, going to Tar Valon as she was. Snugging her cloak around her, she set out to find a boat to the River Queen.
Chapter 13. From Stone to Stone. The light of the rising sun woke Rand, and he wondered if he were dreaming. He sat up slowly, staring. Everything had changed, or almost everything. The sun and the sky were as he expected to see, if pallid and all but cloudless. Loyal and Huron still lay on either side of him, wrapped in their cloaks asleep, and their horses still stood hobbled a pace away. But everyone else was gone. Soldiers, horses, his friends, everyone and everything gone. The hollow itself had changed too, and they were in the middle of it now, no longer on the edge. At Rand's head rose a gray stone cylinder, every bit of 3 spans high and a full pace thick, covered with hundreds, perhaps thousands of deeply incised diagrams and markings in some language he did not recognize. White stone paved the bottom of the hollow, as level as a floor, polished so smooth it almost glistened. Broad, high steps rose to the rim in concentric rings of different colored stone. And about the rim, the trees stood blackened and twisted, as if a firestorm had roared through them. Everything seemed paler than it should be, just like the sun, more subdued, as if seen through mist. Only there was no mist. Just the 3 of them, and the horses appeared truly solid. But when he touched the stone under him, it felt solid enough. He reached out and shook Loyal and Huron. Wake up. Wake up and tell me I'm dreaming. Please wake up.
Is it morning already?
Loyal began, sitting up. Then his mouth fell open, and his big round eyes grew wider and wider. Huron woke with a start, then leaped to his feet, jumping like a flea in a hot rock to look this way, then that. Where are we? What's happened? Where is everybody? Where are we, Lord Rand? He sank to his knees, wringing his hands, but his eyes still darted. What's happened? I don't know, Rand said slowly. I was hoping it was a dream, but maybe it is a dream. He had had experience of dreams that were not dreams, experience he wanted neither to repeat nor to remember. He stood up carefully. Everything stayed as it was.
I do not think so,
Loyal said. He was studying the column, and he did not appear happy. His long eyebrows sagged across his cheeks, and his tufted ears seemed to have wilted.
I think this is the same stone we went to sleep beside last night. I think I know what it is now.
For once, he sounded miserable about knowing. That's... No. That being the same stone was no more crazy than what he could see around him. Matt and Perrin and the Shinarans gone, and everything changed. I thought I'd escaped, but it started again. And there's no such thing as crazy anymore. Unless I am. He looked at Loyal and Huron. They were not acting as if he were mad. They saw it too. Something about the steps caught his eye. The different colors. 7 rising from blue to red. 1 for each Ajah, he said. No, Lord Rand, Huron moaned. No. Aes Sedai would not do this to us. They wouldn't. I walk in the light. We all do, Huron, Rand said. The Aes Sedai won't hurt you. unless you get in the way. Could this be Moraine's doing somehow? Loyal, you said you know what the stone is. What is it?
I said I think I know, Rand. There was a piece of an old book, just a few pages. But one of them had a drawing of this stone. This stone.
There was a distinct difference in the way he said it that marked importance.
Or one very like it. And underneath it, it said, "From stone to stone run the lines of if, between the worlds that might be."
What does that mean, Loyal? It doesn't make any sense. The Ogier shook his massive head sadly.
It was only a few pages. Part of it said Aes Sedai in the Age of Legends, some of those who could travel, the most powerful of them, could use these stones. It did not say how, but I think, from what I could puzzle out, that perhaps those Aes Sedai used the stones somehow to journey to those worlds.
He glanced up at the seared trees and pulled his eyes down again quickly, as he did not want to think about what lay beyond the rim.
Yet even if Aes Sedai can use them, or could, we have no Aes Sedai with us to channel the power. So I don't see how it can be.
Rand's skin prickled. Aes Sedai used them in the Age of Legends, when there were male Aes Sedai. He had a vague memory of the void closing round him as he fell asleep, filled with that uneasy glow. And he remembered the room in the village, and the light he had reached for to escape. If that was the male half of True Source. No, it can't be. But what if it is? Light. I was wondering whether to run or not, and all the time it's right inside my head. Maybe I brought us here. He did not want to think about it. Worlds that might be. I don't understand, Loyal. The Ogier shrugged massively and uneasily.
Neither do I, Rand. Most of it sounded like this. If a woman go left or right, does time's flow divide? Does the wheel then weave two patterns? 1,000 for each of eternity, as many as the stars. Is one real, the others merely shadows and reflections? You see, it is not very clear. Mainly questions, most of which seem to contradict each other. And there just wasn't much of it.
He went back to staring at the column, but he looked as if he wished it would go away.
There are supposed to be a good many of these stones scattered all over the world, or there were once. But I never heard of anyone finding one. I never heard of anyone finding anything like this at all.
My Lord Rand. Now on his feet, Huron seemed calmer, but he clutched his coat at the waist with both hands, his face urgent. My Lord Rand, you'll get us back, won't you? Back where we belong? I have a wife, my lord, and children. Melia'd take it bad enough, me dying, but if she doesn't even have my body to give to the mother's embrace, she'll grieve to the end of her days. You understand, my lord? I can't leave her not knowing. You'll get us back. And if I die, if you can't take her my body, you'll let her know, so she has that at least. He was no longer questioning at the end. A note of confidence had crept into his voice. Rand opened his mouth to say again he was not a lord, then shut it without speaking. That was hardly important enough to mention now. You got him into this. He wanted to deny it, but he knew what he was, knew he could channel, even if it always seemed to happen all by itself. Loyal said Aes Sedai used the stones, and that meant the one power. What Loyal said he knew, you could be sure of. The Ogier never claimed to know if he did not. And there was no one else nearby who could wield the power. You got him into it. You have to get him out. You have to try. I will do my best, Huron. And because Huron was Shinaran, he added, by my house and honor. A shepherd's house and a shepherd's honor. But I'll make them do as well as the lord's. Huron loosed his hold on his coat. The confidence reached his eyes, too. He bowed deeply. Honor to serve, my lord. Guilt rippled through Rand. He thinks you'll see him home now because Shinaran lords always keep their word. What are you going to do, Lord Rand? None of that, Huron. There'll be no bowing. I'm not. Suddenly he knew he could not tell the man again that he was not a lord. All that was holding the sniffer together was his belief in a lord, and he could not take that away. Not now. Not here. No bowing, he finished awkwardly. As you say, Lord Rand. Huron's grin was almost as wide as when Rand first met him. Rand cleared his throat. Yes, well, that's what I say. They were both watching him, Loyal curious, Huron confident, both waiting to see what he would do. I brought them here. I must have. So I have to get them back. And that means... Drawing a deep breath, he walked across the white paving stones to the symbol-covered cylinder. Small lines of some language he did not know surrounded each symbol. Odd letters that flowed in curves and spirals, suddenly turned to jagged hooks and angles, then flowed on. At least it was not Trolloc script. Reluctantly, he put his hands on the column. It looked like any dry, polished stone, but it felt curiously slick, like oiled metal. He closed his eyes and formed the flame. The void came slowly, hesitantly. He knew his own fear was holding it back, fear of what he was trying. As fast as he fed fear into the flame, more came. I can't do it. Channel the power. I don't want to. Like, there has to be another way. Grimly, he forced the thoughts to stillness. He could feel sweat beading on his face. Determinedly, he kept on, pushing his fears into the consuming flame, making it grow and grow. And the void was there. The core of him floated in emptiness. He could see the light. Saidin. Even with his eyes closed. Feel the warmth of it surrounding him, surrounding everything. Suffusing everything. He wavered like a candle flame seen through oiled paper. Rancid oil, stinking oil. He reached for it. He was not sure how he reached, but it was something, a movement, a stretching toward the light, towards Aideen, and caught nothing as if running his hands through water. It felt like a slimy pond, scum floating atop clean water below. He could not scoop up any of the water. Time and again it trickled through his fingers, not even droplets of the water remaining, only the slick scum, making his skin crawl. Desperately he tried to form an image of the hollow as it had been, with Ingtar and the Lances sleeping by their horses, with Matt and Perrin, and the stone lying buried except for one end. Outside the void he formed it, clinging to the shell of emptiness that enclosed him. He tried to link the image with the light, tried to force them together. The hollow as it had been, and he and Loyal and Huron there together. His head hurt. Together with Matt and Perrin and the Shinarans. Burning in his head. Together. The void shattered into 1,000 razor shards, slicing his mind. Shuddering, he staggered back, wide-eyed. His hands hurt from pressing the stone, and his arms and shoulders quivered with aching. His stomach lurched from the feel of filth covering him, and his head... He tried to steady his breathing. That had never happened before. When the void went, it went like a pricked bubble, just gone, in a twinkling. Never like broken glass. His head felt numb, as if 1,000 slashes had happened so quickly, the pain had not yet come. But every cut had felt as real as if done with a knife. He touched his temple and was surprised not to see blood on his fingers. Huron stood there watching him, still confident. If anything, the sniffer seemed more sure of the minute. Lord Rand was doing something. That was what lords were for. They protected the land and the people with their bodies and their lives. When something was wrong, they set it to right, and saw fairness and justice done. As long as Rand was doing something, anything, Huron would have confidence that it would all come out right in the end. That was what lords did. Loyal had a different look, a slightly puzzled frown, but his eyes were on Rand too. Rand wondered what he was thinking. It was worth a try, he told them. The rancid oil field inside his head. Light, it's inside me. I don't want it inside me. Was fading slowly, but he still thought he might vomit. I will try again in a few minutes. He hoped he sounded confident. He had no idea how the stones worked, if what he was doing had any chance of success. Maybe there are rules for working them. Maybe you have to do something special. Like maybe you can't use the same stone twice, or... He cut off that line of thought. There was no good in thinking like that. He had to do it. Looking at Loyal and Huron, he thought he knew what Lan had meant about duty pressing down like a mountain. My lord, I think... Huron let his words trail off, looking abashed for a moment. My lord, maybe if we find the Dark Friends, we can make one of them tell us how to get back. I would ask a Dark Friend or the Dark One himself if I thought I'd get a true answer back, Rand said. But we are all there is, just us three. Just me. I'm the one who has to do it. We could follow their trail, my lord. If we catch them... Rand stared at the sniffer. You can still smell them? I can, my lord. Huron frowned. It's faint, pale-like everything else here. But I can smell the trail. Right up there. He pointed to the rim of the hollow. I don't understand it, my lord, but... Last night I could have sworn the trail went right on by the hollow back where we were. But it's in the same place now, only here, and fainter, like I said. Not old, not faint like that, but... I don't know, Lord Rand, except that it's there. Rand considered. If Thane and the Dark Friends were here, wherever here was, they might know how to get back. They had to if they had reached here in the first place. They had the horn and the dagger. Matt had to have that dagger. For that, if for nothing else, he had to find them. What finally decided him, he was ashamed to realize, was that he was afraid to try again. Afraid to try channeling the power. He was less afraid of confronting Dark Friends and Trollocs with only Huron and Loyal than he was of that. Then we will go after the Dark Friends. He tried to sound sure, the way Lan would, or Ingtar. The horn must be recovered. If we can't puzzle out a way to take it from them, at least we will know where they are when we find Ingtar again. If only they don't ask how we're going to find him again. Huron, make sure it really is the trail we're after. The sniffer leaped into his saddle, eager to be doing something himself, perhaps eager to be away from the hollow, and scrambled his horse up the broad-colored steps. The animal's hooves rang loudly on the stone, but they made not a mark. Rand stowed Red's hobbles in his saddlebags. The banner was still there. He would not have minded if that had been left behind. Then gathered his bow and quiver and climbed to the stallion's back. The bundle of Tom Maryland's cloak made a mound behind his saddle. Loyal led his big mount over to it. With the Ogier standing on the ground, Loyal's head came almost to Rand's shoulder, and him in his saddle. Loyal still looked puzzled. You think we should stay here? Rand said. Try again to use the stone. If the Dark Friends are here in place, we have to find them. We can't leave the Horn of Valir in Dark Friend hands. You heard the Amerlin, and we have to get that dagger back. Matt will die without it. Loyal nodded.
Yes, Rand, we do. But Rand, the stones...
We will find another. You said they were scattered all over, and if they're all like this, all this stonework around them, it should not be too hard to find one.
Rand, that fragment said the stones came from an older age than the Age of Legends. And even the Aes Sedai then did not understand them, though they used them. Some of the truly powerful did. They used them with the one power, Rand. How do you think to use this stone to take us back? Or any other stone we find?
For a moment, Rand could only stare at the Ogier, thinking faster than he ever had in his life. If they are older than the Age of Legends, maybe the people who built them didn't use the power. There must be another way. The Dark Friends got here, and they certainly couldn't use the power. Whatever this other way is, I will find it out. I will get us back, Loyal. He looked at the tall stone column with its odd markings and felt a prickle of fear. I don't have to use the power to do it. I will, Loyal. I promise. One way or another. The Ogier gave a doubtful nod. He swung up onto his huge horse and followed Rand up the steps to join Huron among the blackened trees. The land stretched out, low and rolling, sparsely forested here and there with grassland between, crossed by more than one stream. In the middle distance, Rand thought he could see another burned patch. It was all pale, the colors washed. There was no sign of anything made by men except the stone circle behind them. The sky was empty, no chimney smoke, no birds, only a few clouds,
Can't go
no
too down.
sun. Worst of all, though, the land seemed to twist the eye. What was close at hand looked all right, and what was seen straight ahead in the distance. But whenever Rand turned his head, things that appeared distant when seen from the corner of his eye seemed to rush toward him, to be nearer when he stared straight at them. It made for dizziness. Even the horses whickered nervously and rolled their eyes. He tried moving his head slowly. The apparent movement of things that should have been fixed was still there, but it seemed to help a little. Did your piece of a book say anything about this? Rand asked. Loyal shook his head, then swallowed hard as if he wished he had kept it still.
Nothing.
I suppose there's nothing to do for it. Which way, Huron? South, Lord Rand. The sniffer kept his eyes on the ground. South, then. There has to be a way back besides using the power. Rand heeled Red's flanks. He tried to make his voice light-hearted, as if he saw no difficulty at all in what they were about. What was it Ingtar said? 3 or 4 days to that monument, Arthur Hawkwing? I wonder if that exists here too. The way the stones do. If this is a world that could be, maybe it's still standing. Wouldn't that be something to see, Loyal? They rode south. Chapter 14. Wolf Brother. Gone, Ingtar demanded of the air. And my guards saw nothing. Nothing. They cannot just be gone. Listening, Theron hunched his shoulders and looked at Matt, who stood a little way off, frowning and muttering to himself. Arguing with himself was how Theron saw it. The sun was peeking over the horizon, past time for them to have been riding. Shadows lay long across the hollow, stretched out and thin, but still like the trees that made them. The pack horses, loaded and on their lead line, stamped impatiently, but everyone stood by his mount and waited. Uno came striding up. Not a goat-kissing track, my lord. He sounded offended. Failure touched on his skill. Burn me, not so much as a flaming hoof scrape. They just bloody vanished. 3 men and 3 horses do not just vanish, Ingtar growled. Go over the ground again, Uno. If anyone can find where they went, it's you. Maybe they just ran away, Matt said. Uno stopped and glared at him. Like he'd cursed an Aes Sedai, Theron thought wonderingly. Why would they run away? Ingtar's voice was dangerously soft. Rand, the builder, my sniffer. My sniffer! Why would any of them run, much less all 3? Matt shrugged. I don't know. Rand was... Theron wanted to throw something at him, hit him, anything to stop him, but Ingtar and Uno were watching. He felt a flutter of relief when Matt hesitated, then spread his hands and muttered, I don't know why. I just thought maybe they had. Ingtar grimaced. Ran away. He growled as if he did not believe it for an instant. The builder can go as he will, but Huron would not run away, and neither would Rand al'Thor. He would not. He knows his duty now. Go on, Uno. Search the ground again. Uno gave a half bow and hurried away, sword hilt bobbing over his shoulder. Ingtar grumbled. Why would Huron leave like that, in the middle of the night without a word? He knows what we're about. How am I to track this shadow-spawned filth without him? I would give 1,000 gold crowns for a pack of trailhounds. If I did not know better, I would say the Dark Friends manage this so they can slip east or west without me knowing. At least I don't know if I do know better. He stumped off after Uno. Theron shifted uneasily. The Dark Friends were doubtless getting further away with every minute. Getting further away, and with them the Horn of Valir, and the dagger from Shadar Logoth. He did not think that Rand, whatever he had become, whatever had happened to him, would abandon that chase. But where did he go? And why? Loyal might go with Rand for friendship, but why Huron? Maybe Maybe he did run away, he muttered, then looked around. No one appeared to have heard. Even Matt was not paying him any mind. He scrubbed a hand through his hair. If Aes Sedai had been after him to be a false dragon, he would have run too. But worrying about Rand was doing nothing to help track the Dark Friends. There was a way, perhaps, if he was willing to take it. He did not want to take it. He had been running away from it. But perhaps now he could no longer run. It served me right for what I told Rand. I wish I could run. Even knowing what he could do to help, what he had to do, he hesitated. No one was looking at him. No one would know what they were seeing, even if they did look. Finally, reluctantly, he closed his eyes and let himself drift. Let his thoughts drift out, away from him. He had tried denying it from the first, long before his eyes began to change from dark brown to burnished golden yellow. At that first meeting, that first instant of recognition, he had refused to believe. And he had run from the recognition ever since. He still wanted to run. His thoughts drifted, feeling for what must be out there, what was always out there in country where men were few and far between. Feeling for his brothers. He did not like to think of them that way, but they were. In the beginning, he had been afraid that what he did had some taint of the Dark Blood, or of the One Power, equally bad for a man who wanted nothing more than to be a blacksmith, live his life in the light and in peace. From that time, he knew something of how Rand felt, afraid of himself, feeling unclean. He was still not past that entirely. This thing he did was older.
All right, everyone, I'm gonna call into this live for tonight. I want to thank everyone for stopping by, and everyone keep stopping by. I appreciate all y'all support. Till next time, everyone. Just stay safe.